The sound penetrated every corner of Outpost Viridian, a keening wail that seemed to bypass the ears entirely and lodge directly in the brain. For 4 days it had continued, rising and falling but never ceasing, driving the outpost's personnel to the edge of their sanity. How much longer? Specialist Talia Reeves asked, massaging her temples as she slumped over her communications console. The crying seemed to interfere with the outpost's transmissions, creating phantom echoes in the subspace channels. Beside her, Lieutenant Jace Porter shrugged helplessly. His normally pristine uniform was rumpled and stubble darkened his jaw. The transport's still 3 days out. Medical says they've tried everything. The source of their collective misery was a 2-week-old infant. Housed in the medical wing, the first known hybrid of human and Novenari DNA. The child's mother, a Novenari scientist named Navarra, had arrived at the outpost seeking asylum just before giving birth. Both mother and medical staff were at their wits' end. "There's something about that cry," Talia murmured, tilting her head. "It's almost ... structured, like a code." Jace snorted. "The only message I'm getting is nobody sleeps tonight." Talia stood suddenly, her dark eyes narrowed in concentration. "I need to see them." "Medbay's restricted," Jace reminded her, but Talia was already heading for the door. Drawn by something she couldn't explain, the medical wing was bathed in soft blue light, a concession to Novenari physiology. Inside the isolation room, Navarra sat cradling her wailing child. Her iridescent skin, normally a shimmering turquoise, had dulled to a flat gray, a sign of extreme distress among her species. "I've tried everything," Navarra whispered when she saw Talia. Her voice was melodic, even in despair. "His systems are perfectly healthy. He just won't stop." Talia approached cautiously. May I try?" Navarra looked up, her large faceted eyes studying Talia with sudden interest. Without a word, she extended the bundle. The moment the child settled into Talia's arms, the crying stopped. The silence was so abrupt, so complete, that Talia nearly gasped. The infant opened eyes that swirled with colors neither human brown, like Talia's, nor Novenari, faceted blue, but something new and beautiful. "How did you do that?" Navarra breathed, her skin lightening to a hopeful aquamarine. "I don't know," Talia admitted, feeling a strange tingling where her skin contacted the baby's. "What's his name?" Elio Navarra replied. "It means bridge between worlds in my language." Leo's tiny hand reached up, fingers splaying against Talia's cheek. A warm sensation spread through her mind. Not thoughts exactly, but impressions of comfort and recognition. "He's communicating," Talia whispered in awe. Dr. Hayden Reed burst into the room, his scanner already worry. The monitor showed. He stopped, staring at the peaceful scene. Impossible. His neural patterns were off the charts a minute ago. Talia asked, unable to take her eyes off the infant. Reed studied his scanner, stabilizing, but ... double quotes. He frowned. "This is strange. Your patterns are synchronizing with his." "What does that mean?" Navarra asked. Reed shook his head. "I've never seen anything like it." Later, as Elio slept peacefully in a bassinet beside her, Navarra studied Talia with new curiosity. "Where were you born, Talia Reeves?" "Generation ship." Helios, Talia replied. "Deep space transit." "My parents were colonists headed for Proxima B." She paused. "Why?" Navarra's skin rippled with patterns that Talia couldn't interpret. "The Helios Project," she said quietly. "I should have known." "Known what?" Before Navarra could answer, Commander Darius Winters appeared in the doorway, his imposing figure silhouetted against the corridor lights. "Specialist Reeves," he said, his deep voice tight with concern. A word. Talia looked down at the sleeping Elio, suddenly reluctant to leave. We've been monitoring the situation. The moment you stepped 3 meters away from the child, his vital signs began to spike again. Talia felt a chill run down her spine. What are you saying, sir? I'm saying, specialist, that until we figure this out, you're being reassigned. His expression softened slightly. Congratulations. You're now on full-time babysitting duty. If in response, Elio stirred in his sleep, a small smile forming on his perfect lips. While somewhere deep in Talia's mind, she felt an unmistakable flutter of contentment that wasn't entirely her own. Neural synchronization doesn't just happen, Dr. Oren Nakamura insisted, studying the holographic brain scans hovering between them, especially not between different species. 3 days had passed since Talia's reassignment. She sat in the medical lab with Elio sleeping peacefully against her chest, his tiny breaths warm against her collarbone. The infant hadn't left her side since their first encounter, and remarkably hadn't cried once in her presence. Yet here we are, Commander Winters replied, his broad shoulders tense as he leaned against the wall. In the past days he'd been spending increasing time in their company, ostensibly monitoring the situation, though Talia had caught his gaze lingering on her more than once. Nakamura adjusted his glasses. Look at these patterns. When Specialist Reeves holds Elio, their brainwaves match perfectly. Almost like ... like what? Talia prompted. Like they're using the same neural architecture, Nakamura finished. Which should be impossible. Navarra, who had been silently observing, finally spoke, lest they were designed that way. All eyes turned to her. Her skin, now restored to its healthy turquoise luster, pulsed with complex patterns that reminded Talia of binary code. What do you— No, Winters demanded, his voice softening when Elio stirred. The Helios wasn't just a generation ship, Navarra explained. It was a mobile laboratory for the Harmonic Integration Project, the classified initiative to create humans capable of neural interface with other species. Her faceted eyes met Talia's. You were born into that program. Talia felt the room tilt. Slightly, that's impossible. My parents were agricultural specialists. Your adoptive parents, Navarra corrected gently. The records were sealed after the project was officially terminated, but not all the research was destroyed. And how exactly do you know this? Winters asked, suspicion edging his tone. Navarra's skin darkened slightly. Because I continued the work, combining it with Novanari genetic science. Elio is the result, the first successful hybrid with enhanced empathic abilities. She hesitated. I never expected to find one of the original human subjects. I'm not a subject, Talia said sharply, instinctively tightening her hold on Elio. I'm a communications specialist with the Terran Expeditionary Force. Yes, Nakamura interjected, excitement overtaking his professional demeanor. And have you ever wondered why you excel at communications? Why you can intuitively understand alien languages that stump our best linguists? Talia fell silent, memories flooding back the ease with which she'd always connected with non-human species. The strange dreams of conversations she couldn't remember having, the inexplicable knowledge of cultural nuances she'd never been taught. Elio recognizes you on a genetic level, Navarra continued. Your neural patterns are complementary. That's why he responds to you, and why he screams bloody murder when she's not around, Winters added dryly. Nakamura was still studying the scans. The implications are staggering. True interspecies communication without technology, direct mind-to-mind contact. He's not a laboratory breakthrough, Talia interrupted, surprising herself with the fierceness in her voice. He's a child. Before anyone could respond, the lab door slid open and Lieutenant Porter rushed in, his face grim. Commander, we've got a problem? Long-range sensors just picked up an unregistered vessel on approach. They're not responding to hails and they're moving fast. Winters straightened immediately. Identity. Unknown, but their energy signature matches Cerberus mercenary vessels. Navara's skin blanched to a pale blue. "They found us," she whispered. "Who found us?" Talia demanded. "People who would pay handsomely for a telepathic hybrid," Winters growled, already moving toward the door. "And who wouldn't care if he survived the extraction process?" Turned to Talia. "Get them to the secure level now." As alarms began to sound throughout the outpost, Elio woke with a startled cry. Talia felt a surge of fear that wasn't her own washed through her mind. The infant was somehow broadcasting his emotions directly into her consciousness. "It's okay," she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. "I've got you." For the first time, she consciously attempted to send a thought back to him. Safety. Protection.com. To her amazement, Elio immediately quieted, his swirling eyes fixed on hers with an intelligence that seemed impossible in one so young. "Did you just—" Navara began, staring at them. Later, Talia said, rising to her feet, "We need to move." As they hurried from the lab, she couldn't help noticing how naturally Commander Winters placed his body between them and the corridor, his hand resting on his sidearm. Their eyes met briefly, and something unspoken passed between them, a promise of protection that stirred emotions Talia hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. With Elio cradled against her heart and danger approaching from the stars, Talia realized that everything she thought she knew about herself had changed. She was no longer just Specialist Talia Reeves. She was part of something both ancient and new, a bridge between worlds, just like the child in her arms. The secure level of Outpost Viridian had been built to withstand orbital bombardment, but it wasn't designed to defend against the precision strike team that breached the perimeter 30 minutes after the alarm sounded. "They've cut through the eastern airlock," Porter's voice crackled over the comm system. "Security teams are engaging, but these aren't ordinary mercs. They're augmented military-grade enhancements." Talia, Navara, and Elio huddled in a reinforced chamber deep within the outpost's core. Commander Winters stood at the sealed doorway, his posture rigid with tension as he coordinated the defense. "Keep the auxiliary power systems isolated," he ordered, "and activate the emergency protocols for Section 7. "They're not here for the outpost," Navara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're here for Elio." Winters turned, his steel-gray eyes meeting Talia's. "We know? The question is, how did they find out about him so quickly?" The accusation in his tone wasn't subtle. Navara's skin flushed a defensive crimson. "I've been hunted for months," she countered. "Why do you think I sought asylum here?" The Cerberus Syndicate has informants everywhere, even in the Terran Expeditionary Force. A distant explosion shook the floor beneath them, sending dust cascading from the ceiling panels. Elio surprisingly remained calm in Talia's arms, his eyes tracking every movement with unnerving focus. "They're getting closer," Talia observed, trying to keep her voice steady for Elio's sake, though she suspected he could sense her fear regardless. Winters nodded grimly. "Porter, status report." "Only static," answered Lieutenant Porter respond. Winters tried again, his knuckles whitening around his comm unit. The silence stretched ominously until a new voice crackled through the speaker. Unfamiliar, coldly mechanical. "Commander Winters, how convenient to find both the hybrid and a Helios subject in one location. Syndicate will pay double." Winters switched off the comm and drew his sidearm. "They've taken the command center." "Then we need to move," Talia said, rising to her feet. "Is there an evacuation point from this level?" "Maintenance shaft behind the auxiliary generator leads to the landing pad," Winters confirmed. "But it's a long way through undefended territory." A series of metallic clangs echoed from the corridor outside, the sound of breaching charges being placed. "We don't have a choice," Talia said, adjusting her hold on Elio. To her surprise, the infant reached up and placed a tiny hand against her cheek. Immediately, a series of images flashed through her mind, schematics of the outpost, security camera feeds, and movement patterns of the intruders. Talia gasped. "He's accessing the outpost systems. Through me." "What?" Winters stared at her. "Well, he's Showing me where they are, Talia explained, struggling to process the information flooding her consciousness. 6 in the main corridor, for approaching from the east. 2 more guarding the landing pad. Navarra's eyes widened. His abilities are developing faster than I anticipated. The stress must be accelerating his evolution. The first breaching charge detonated with a concussive boom that made their ears pop. The reinforced door held, but it wouldn't withstand multiple charges. We go now, Winters decided, moving to a concealed panel in the wall. He pressed his palm against it, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel. I'll lead. Navarra, you follow. Talia and Elio in the middle. Stay close. They had barely entered the tunnel when the second charge blew the door off its hinges. Talia heard the heavy footfalls of armored mercenaries entering the chamber they'd just vacated. There in the tunnels, a mechanically enhanced voice announced, "Activate heat trackers." The maintenance shaft wound through the bowels of the outpost, barely wide enough for Winter's broad shoulders. After several minutes of tense crawling, they emerged into the auxiliary generator room, its massive fusion reactor humming with restrained power. "Landing pad's 2 levels up," Winters whispered, checking his weapon. "If we can reach the emergency shuttle," a barrage of plasma fire interrupted him, scorching the wall mere centimeters from his head. 3 armored figures appeared at the far entrance, their augmented eyes glowing an eerie red in the dim light. "Target acquired," the lead mercenary announced, raising a heavy plasma rifle. "Surrender the infant and the Helio subject." Winters stepped in front of Talia, returning fire with precise shots that barely dented the mercenary's advanced armor. Navarra pulled Talia behind the bulk of a power conduit as the air filled with deadly energy bolts. "We need a distraction," Talia hissed, feeling Elio grow increasingly agitated in her arms. Suddenly, the infant let out a piercing cry, not the continuous wail from before, but a single, focused sound that seemed to exist at multiple frequencies simultaneously. Every electronic device in the room flickered, as the mercenaries' armor systems visibly shorted out, leaving them momentarily paralyzed. What the Winters began. "Run," Talia shouted, already moving toward the exit with Navarra close behind, as they sprinted through the corridors toward the landing pad. Winters falling into step beside her, Talia felt an unexpected warmth bloom, where his shoulder brushed against hers. In the midst of chaos, the connection felt like an anchor. "Remind me never to underestimate your little friend," Winters said, a hint of admiration coloring his gruff tone. Talia glanced down at Elio, who gazed back with those impossibly knowing eyes. "I think we're just beginning to understand what he's capable of." And as they burst onto the landing pad under the alien sky, the emergency shuttle waiting like a promise of escape, Talia realized that she had never felt more alive or more terrified of what the future might hold. The emergency shuttle wasn't designed for comfort, but after 48 hours in transit, they had established a tenuous routine. Talia sat in the co-pilot seat, Elio dozing against her chest in a makeshift sling Navarra had crafted from spare medical wrappings. Commander Winters Darius. He'd asked her to call him during the quieter moments of their flight manned the controls. With the easy confidence of someone who had spent years navigating the stars. "Approaching Celestial Station," he announced, his voice low to avoid waking Elio. "We should be safe there, at least temporarily. The station is neutral territory administered by the Galactic Accord." Navarra looked up from the datapad she'd been studying, her skin shifting to a contemplative violet. "Safety is relative when it comes to politics. The Accord has its own agenda regarding interspecies development. I don't have many options," Darius countered, guiding the shuttle toward the massive space station visible through the view screen. Its circular structure gleamed against the backdrop of stars, rotating slowly to generate artificial gravity. "We need supplies, information, and allies." Talia remained silent, her thoughts turning inward to the strange connection that had been growing between her and Elio. Each day, the infant's abilities seemed to expand. He no longer just projected emotions, but complex concepts and even rudimentary images. Increasingly, Talia found herself able to respond in kind, forming a mental dialogue that transcended conventional language. You're getting better at it, Navara observed, noticing Talia's distant expression. At what? Communing with him? Your neural patterns are becoming more synchronized. Soon, you won't need physical contact to maintain the connection. Darius glanced over, his expression unreadable. Is that safe? Unknown, Navara admitted, but necessary. Elio needs guidance to develop his abilities properly. Without Talia, she didn't finish the sentence. The docking procedure at Celestial Station went smoothly, though Talia noticed Darius had transmitted false identification codes. When she raised an eyebrow questioningly, he merely shrugged. Better if our arrival isn't officially logged. Station's diplomatic sector was designed to accommodate dozens of species, with atmospheric and gravitational controls that adjusted automatically to visitors' needs. They were assigned temporary quarters in a discreet section typically reserved for political refugees, which Talia supposed they now were. I need to contact some people I trust, Darius explained, as they settled into the spartanly furnished apartment. There are channels even the Syndicate can't monitor. And I need to access the station's medical facilities, Navara added. Elio requires specialized nutrients for his hybrid physiology. Talia nodded, trying to ignore the flutter of anxiety at the thought of being separated from them both. I'll stay here with Elio. After they departed, Talia paced the living area, the infant watching her movements with his usual intense focus. Through their connection, she sensed not fear, but curiosity, his way of asking why they had stopped running. We need help, she explained aloud, finding it easier to verbalize even as she sent the corresponding thoughts. We can't keep running forever. Elio's response came as a series of impressions, faceless figures with shadowed intentions, circling them like predators. No, Talia sighed. I don't know who to trust either. A chime at the door interrupted her one-sided conversation. Talia froze, instinctively placing herself between Elio and the entrance. Identify, she called. Ambassador Thala of the Novanari High Council, came the response. The melodic accent unmistakably Novanari, but different from Navara's regional dialect. Talia hesitated, then checked the security monitor. The figure outside was indeed Novanari, her skin a deep indigo marked with the distinctive geometric patterns of their political caste. How did you find us? Talia asked through the intercom. Navara contacted me, Ambassador Thala replied. What? I've been searching for her since she disappeared from our research facility. What? May I enter? This corridor is not secure for such conversations. A moment's deliberation, Talia released the lock. The door slid open to reveal a Novanari female, whose bearing spoke of authority and age. Her faceted eyes immediately found Elio, widening slightly in what Talia interpreted as surprise or awe. So it's true, Thala murmured. She succeeded. If you're here to take him, Talia began defensively. Thala raised a four-fingered hand. I am here to help. Navara was my protege before she fled with her research. What she didn't know was that I supported her work in secret, against the wishes of the more conservative elements of our government. Why should I believe you? 'Cause Navara does, came Darius's voice, as he appeared in the doorway behind Thala, his hand resting casually near his concealed weapon. I verified her credentials and her communications history with Navara. She appears genuine. Thala inclined her head. Commander Winters, I presume? Your reputation precedes you. As does yours, Ambassador. Your advocacy for human Novanari. Cooperation is well documented. The tension in the room eased slightly as Navara joined them, carrying a case of medical supplies. Her skin brightened at the sight of her former mentor. Thala, you came, of course. The ambassador moved further into the apartment, her gaze never leaving Elio. He is remarkable. Even more so than your projections suggested. He's not a science experiment, Talia said firmly. Thala's attention shifted to her, those alien eyes seeming to look through rather than at her. No, Specialist Reeves. He is the future, as are you. Later that evening, after Elio had been fed and settled into sleep, adults gathered around the apartment's small conference table. Holographic displays showed intercepted communications, security reports, and political analyses from across 3 sectors. The situation is more complex than you realize, Thala explained. The Cerberus Syndicate is merely a proxy. Their attack on your outpost was funded by a coalition of interests, some human, some Novenari, some from species you've never encountered, all united by fear of what Elio represents, which is, Darius asked. The obsolescence of their power, Thala replied simply. Imagine a galaxy where instantaneous, perfect communication exists between all sentient beings, where misunderstandings that have led to wars become impossible, where isolation, the foundation of control and manipulation, vanishes. Navarra nodded. That was always the goal of my research. It's not to create a weapon or a tool, but a bridge. Talia felt a strange resonance at the word bridge, the meaning of Elio's name. She glanced at Darius, finding him already looking at her with an expression that made her heart skip a beat. They'll never stop hunting him, Darius said quietly. Or Talia, once they understand her role. No, Thala agreed. Which is why you cannot stay here. I have arranged passage to a sanctuary world beyond a core jurisdiction, a place where Elio can grow and develop safely, where others like him might eventually be born. Others? Talia echoed. Thala's skin shimmered with patterns that translated roughly to hopeful determination. You and Navarra have proven it's possible. The next step is to create a community, a new kind of society where humans and Novenari can truly merge their gifts. The implications were staggering. Talia looked down at her hands, wondering what it meant for her own future. As if sensing her thoughts, Darius reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers in a gesture too deliberate to be accidental. Whatever you decide, he said quietly, you won't face it alone. In that moment, with her hand in his and Elio's, sleeping consciousness, a gentle presence at the edge of her mind, Talia realized she was standing at the threshold of something much larger than herself, a new configuration of family, of connection, of possibility. And for the first time since their desperate flight began, she felt not fear, but anticipation. Dawn on Celestial Station was an artificial ephemera, gradual brightening of the environmental lighting to simulate sunrise. Talia stood at the viewport of their temporary quarters, watching the massive arms of the station rotate against the eternal night. Elio was awake, but quiet in his makeshift crib, his consciousness a warm presence alongside her own thoughts. In the 12 hours since Ambassador Thala's arrival, their situation had evolved rapidly. The sanctuary world she spoke of, Harmony, existed at the edge of charted space, established in secret by a coalition of scientists, philosophers, and visionaries from a dozen species. A place where the old rules and divisions no longer applied. You're up early, Darius said, his voice rough with sleep as he joined her at the viewport. He stood close enough that their shoulders touched, a proximity that felt increasingly natural. Couldn't sleep, Talia admitted. Too much to process. Having second thoughts? She turned to look at him, studying the strong lines of his face softened. By the dim light, aren't you? You're being asked to abandon your career, your life, to protect us. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. My career was probably over the moment I stole that shuttle. His expression grew serious. Besides, some things are worth sacrificing for. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining with a casualness that belied the significance of the gesture. Talia felt her pulse quicken, a response that echoed through. Her connection with Elio, who let out a soft coo of apparent approval. He likes you, she observed. The feeling's mutual, Darius replied. His eyes remained fixed on Talia. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities, until the apartment's communication panel chimed with an urgent alert. Security breach in Docking Bay 7, the automated system announced. All residents advised to remain in their quarters. Darius moved immediately to the security console, bringing up station schematics. It's 2 sections from our departure. Point. Navarra emerged from her sleeping area, her skin a wary amber. Is it them, unknown? Darius replied. But we shouldn't wait to find out. Ambassador Thala's transport leaves in 40 minutes. We need to move now. They gathered their few belongings with practiced efficiency. Talia secured Elio and his carrier against her chest, feeling his consciousness merge more closely with hers, his way of seeking reassurance. Safe, she projected to him. We'll keep you safe. The corridors of Celestial Station were surprisingly empty as they made their way toward the diplomatic docking bay. Following a route Thela had provided that bypassed the main thoroughfares. Darius led, his posture alert, and his hand never far from his weapon. Navarra followed close behind Talia, her iridescent skin muted to blend with the station's metallic walls. They were halfway to their destination when station security officers appeared ahead. Their uniforms, bearing the neutral gray of the Galactic Accord, but their stances unmistakably hostile. "Halt and identify," the lead officer ordered, hand resting on her sidearm. Darius slowed but didn't stop. "Commander Winters, Terran, Expeditionary Force. We have diplomatic clearance." "Your clearance has been revoked," the officer replied. "Die. Order of the Accord Security Council. You're harboring a biological anomaly that requires quarantine." Kalia felt a chill run through her. Biological anomaly was bureaucratic language for something or someone to be contained, studied, and ultimately controlled. Before anyone could respond, the officers' units emitted a high-pitched squeal that made them wince and clutch their ears. Simultaneously, the corridor's security doors slammed shut on either side of the group, effectively isolating them. Ambassador Thela's voice came through their personal communicators. "Take the maintenance shaft to your right. Security systems are temporarily ... confused." Darius didn't hesitate, leading them through a panel that had silently slid open in the corridor wall. As it closed behind them, Talia heard the officers calling for backup. "Thela's good," Darius murmured as they crawled through the narrow passage. "She's had centuries of diplomatic experience," Navarra replied, much of it spent outmaneuvering her own government. The maintenance shaft deposited them directly into the diplomatic docking bay, where a sleek Novenari vessel waited. Its organic curves and luminescent hull marked it as far more advanced than standard Accord ships. Ambassador Thela stood at the entry ramp, her formal robes exchanged for practical travel attire. "Quickly," she urged. "The station administrator has been persuaded to delay security for precisely 7 minutes." As they boarded, Talia noticed other passengers already seated in the ship's cabina, diverse group of beings from at least 5 different species, all watching them with expressions ranging from curiosity to reverence. "Your fellow pioneers," Thela explained, following Talia's gaze. "Scientists, teachers, healers, all committed to the vision of Harmonia." The ship detached from the station with unnatural smoothness, its advanced propulsion system barely perceptible as they accelerated. Away. Through the viewport, Talia watched Celestial Station dwindle against the starfield, symbolically marking their departure from the known and regulated universe. "Once we clear Accord space, we'll make the jump to the sanctuary coordinates," Thela informed them, her skin pulsing with patterns of satisfaction. "From there, no conventional tracking will find us." Darius joined Talia as she settled into a seat designed to accommodate human physiology. "Having third thoughts yet?" he asked lightly, though she could see the genuine question in his eyes. "I've never been more certain," she replied, surprised to find it was true. "My entire life, I've felt ... different, out of place. Now I know why." Navarra approached, holding a small device that emitted a soft hum. "Before we arrive, there's something you should see." She activated the device, projecting a holographic display of DNA sequences. "This is your genetic profile from the outposts. Medical scan." The complex strands rotated slowly, sections highlighted in varying colors. "The modifications are subtle but profound," Navarra continued. "Neuroplasticity, enhanced empathic centers, specialized receptors for nonverbal communication. Engineered to create a human capable of true interspecies connection." "I was designed," Talia said, the words strange on her tongue. "You were given a gift," Navarra corrected. "And now, because of you, Elio will not grow up alone in his abilities." The ship lurched slightly as it activated its FTL drive, star-streaked, past the viewport, stretching into lines of brilliant light. Elio stirred against Talia's chest, his consciousness brightening with excitement as he sensed the journey's progression. "He knows we're going home," Talia realized aloud, "even though he's never been there." Darius's arms settled around her shoulders, a warm weight that felt surprisingly right. Home isn't always a place, he observed quietly. In that moment, with the universe blurring around them and the future unwritten before them, Talia understood the truth of his words. Home was the infant breathing softly against her heart. The brilliant Novanari scientist who had risked everything for a vision of unity. The steadfast commander whose presence had become essential to her in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. Home. Was the connection between them all a new constellation forming from stars that had never before existed in the same sky as the ship carried them toward Harmonia? Talia felt Elio's consciousness touch not just hers, but Darius's and Navarra's as well, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. A bridge forming between minds, between species, between possible futures. He's connecting us, Navarra whispered in awe, through that embryonic link. Talia sensed not just thoughts but the essence of those around her, Darius's protective determination, Navarra's brilliant hope, Thila's ancient wisdom, and most powerful of all, Elio's pure potential. Unfettered by the prejudices and limitations of established society, for the first time, she truly understood what they were creating, not just a sanctuary, but the beginning of a transformation. A future where the barriers between species, the misunderstandings, the fears, the ancient hatreds might finally dissolve. It would not be easy. There would be resistance, dangers, setbacks. But as Darius's hand found hers again, as Navarra's skin glowed with patterns of joy, as Elio's consciousness pulsed with contentment and possibility, Talia knew with absolute certainty that they had chosen the right path. Together they would build something new among the stars,